One of the key driving factors behind human innovation and technological innovation is, and has always been, the desire for a more convenient and more comfortable life for us as a species. However, I believe that it's this continual technological and sociological development, particularly here in the Western world, that is driving us to become a generation of addicts. What we have put together in order to improve our lives has, I believe, in many ways actually detracted from our lives, and in many instances caused substantial problems in our lives in the form of addictions. That's what I want to talk about in today's video. Firstly, I want to say hi. Thank you for sticking with the channel. Sorry I haven't been around a while, and I'll explain a bit more about that in a little bit. Hope you're keeping safe. Hope you're keeping sane. Like I say, thanks for everyone who continues to support the channel. I will plug my Patreon, link in description in a little bit. But first, let's just talk about where I've been. Well, if you've been with the channel when you watch all of my videos, then you'll know. I took a trip for about a week and a half up to Scotland. Did go to a couple of the cities and do the touristy bits, but the vast majority of my time away was spent in quite a remote part of Argyll and Bute. Now, I won't go into too much detail, but just in case you are from Scotland and you're interested, we went to a place called Straker, which is near Ardentiny and just across the water from Dunoon. So went there, and it's a lovely remote place. The reason I went there is a family connection. My uncle lived his entire life up there and is buried up there, and I'd never been up to see where he was buried. So I wanted to make the rather substantial journey pretty much from the southeast down here up to the very northwest in order to do that and experience some lovely sights and stuff along the way. But where we stayed, and this is the basis of today's video, where we stayed was very remote. There was one pub which was about a mile and a half's walk away. There was one shop which was only open at very limited time, so if you missed it, you missed it. And there was very little else in terms of sort of local facilities or amenities. And I absolutely loved it. As someone who is susceptible to, addiction, so someone who is susceptible to overstimulation, this taking myself away from the options and this development that I've spoken about here in the Western world was a massive, massive eye-opener for me, and did make me think a lot about the basis of my addiction, but also of the growing epidemic of addiction that we see in the developed Western world. We have, as human beings, got this propensity to develop technologies and develop methods by which to make our lives more comfortable, make our lives simpler and easier. It's the reason we have dating apps on our phone. It's the reason we can order through Just Eat or Uber Eat and have all wealth of food delivered straight to our door. The reason we've got Amazon Prime, we can pick whatever we want. We can buy whatever we want and have it arrive on our doorsteps, in some instances, on the very same day. It's the reason you go to supermarkets, and if you want to buy some, baked beans, there's 14 different varieties of baked beans. As everyone knows, I've recently sort of taken a break from alcohol, and I'll talk about that a bit more in another video. But you go to the local supermarket and there's 17 different varieties of alcohol-free beer. Here in the Western developed world, we have a wealth of choice brought about by supply chains, advances in transportation technology, but also in terms of digital technology. So the apps allow us to find food, to find a cab, and in many cases to find a partner simply by pushing a few buttons and swiping a screen. This is, like I say, an inherent part of the human species, making life more comfortable and more convenient for ourselves, and it does certainly, without doubt, have its benefits. However, it's the removal of these convenient features. For example, where I was staying, there was not a single place that I could order from on Uber Eats, Just Eat, Deliveroo, whatever. The shop that was local was closed a significant amount of the time. In fact, one evening I pretty much had to make do with what I had, and as I was on my travels, that was pretty much a packet of crisps and a pot noodle. But I survived. And not only did I survive, I realised that this bombardment of choice, of options that we deem as sort of success and affluence here in the West, is sometimes actually a little bit of a barrier to true psychological freedom. Now, this sounds a little bit hippie and tree-huggery, right? But please do bear with me. Once you remove those trappings, once you remove that bombardment of options and stimulation, and that's effectively what it is. When I decide to go and buy some alcohol-free beer, my brain has suddenly got all these options, all these choices, and this is deemed as a very, very positive thing. It's deemed as sort of somewhat of a, affluent success to have all these options available to you. I could have this, that, and the other. If I wanted to order something, I can order order whatever food I want and it'll be delivered to my door within half an hour. Amazing. But once you strip that away, you realise that these are distractions. And it puts us onto this psychological treadmill of constant stimulation, of constant decision making, of bombardment of things to think about and things to consider. So when we're in a situation between these sort of crisis of choice and options, our brain feels the need to continually stimulate itself through other means. When we don't have these organic choices to make, when we don't have to decide whether we want an extra large chicken shish or a doner kebab, or we want to order a pizza or a Chinese or whatever, when we're not in a situation where we're having to deduce or to derive a decision from a bombardment of choices, our brain insists on that stimulation. It's the reason that when you're watching videos here on YouTube, and my stats, possibly down to my own monotonous voice sometimes, but my YouTube analytics will tell me that quite often people click away from videos pretty quickly, and I am exactly the same. Even with creators, even with video types that I actually enjoy, if it doesn't engage my interest within a very short period of time, I'll flick over. Same as the TV. We have Netflix, we have Amazon Prime Video, we have all these subscription services, we have 173,000 channels. But yet we can't find anything to watch because we put something on, and if it doesn't grip our attention, if we don't get that instant hit of dopamine, the instant engagement, then we'll flick over and find something else. When I was away, as the guys, who have signed up to my Patreon and not yet received their welcome video or whatever, and the fact that you haven't seen any videos from me for a while, it's because I didn't have a sufficient internet signal. I did at times have a little bit of a signal, so I did try and reply to some comments, but there was no way I was going to make any videos. I couldn't watch any videos. There was limited TV, but it was fantastic. Why? Because it forced me to engage in things that otherwise I would have looked away from. I read books, I went for walks, and I know, again, this all sounds very airy-fairy and hippie and back to nature and all that sort of stuff, right? But it was amazing. Why? Because I didn't need to be stimulated all the time. Once I'd adjusted to a much, much simpler, much slower pace of life, suddenly I was free. Suddenly I didn't need additional stimulation because I wasn't surrounded by it all the time. Yes, I went to the local pub, right? But it was a decision. Me and my wife walked there. It was an hour and a half. It absolutely pissed it down and we got soaked, but maybe that's a story for another day. When we got to the pub, sat down, limited menu, ate some food. There was no fruit machines, no quiz machines, no jukeboxes, nothing. Just sit down, chat, eat some food, and the pubs, I think, shut at about 10 o'clock. It was lovely. It was amazing just not to be surrounded by, like I say, the very thing that we believe we're striving towards. We're striving towards freedom through options and convenience, when actually it's that constant bombardment of stimulation that keeps us trapped within a cycle of dopamine addiction. Social media has perpetuated it. All right, it's the reason we've gone from long-form social media like Friends Reunited, if you remember that, and Facebook to some extent, to little snapshots from Twitter, and ultimately things like TikTok, where you don't have time to get bored. Everything is served up to you in such an engaging and instantly gratifying form that you don't have time to get bored and turn over. But when you take a step back, when you actually take time to engage, you can actually learn more, you can discover more, you can feel more, you can see more, and you can enjoy more, because you have the patience to see things through without the distraction of other flashing lights and noises and, clicking off this video because I'm bored of it in 10 seconds and watching something else, but there's nothing else to watch. And after a while, you become you come at one with this slower pace of life, with this lack of stimulation. And, if it wasn't for commitments I had and work and my stepdaughter and family and all the rest of it, I would have happily left this, indulgent wealth of decisions and choices and overstimulation and, too much choice and convenience. I would have left that behind and gone and lived a simpler life. Yes, I would have been more prepared, shopping-wise, and had something somewhat more substantial than a pot noodle and a packet of crisps, but it doesn't matter. Like I say, I ate, I read a book, had a lovely relaxed evening, without the thought of, I'll just pick up my phone and order a Just Eat, or I'll just pop down the pub and have a few pints, or obviously historically I'll just go online and have a gamble, or go down the local arcade or the casino. These options aren't available to you. Yeah, they're not a million miles away, of course. So you're not completely devoid of social contact. You're not in the middle of absolutely nowhere. We were only, realistically, I think about 30, 40 miles from Glasgow. But it felt like another world, a world away from the incessant trappings and stimulation of modern life. and a life where we can rediscover, a much simpler existence, and one that is less likely, far less likely, to result in addictions and a constant need of manufactured dopamine. Anyway, it's great to be back. Thank you to everyone who's continuing to support the channel. Like I say, if you signed up to Patreon and I haven't sent you a message yet, or if you signed up to the higher tier and I haven't sent you a welcome video yet, whether you want it or not, you're getting it, then that will happen in due course. Like I say, you know where I've been now and why it wasn't possible. If you do wish to support me through the Patreon, there'll be a link in the description below. Again, now I've got time, I'll start putting extra content on there. I'm doing a Patreon-only Q&A as well, so click on that, and thank you to anyone who chooses to support me in that way. If you don't, then it'd be brilliant if you could just like, subscribe, share the video, put a comment on, all that sort of great YouTube-y stuff. And now I'm back. There will be more videos coming very shortly. Stay safe, stay sane, everyone, and I'll speak to you soon. All the best.